UFC 297, Sean Strickland, Dricus du Plessis, Scotiabank Arena, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. That is the main event this Saturday night for the Middleweight Championship. Now, it is expected that Israel Adesanya will be there for this event. Now, personally, Adesanya, I'm not interested in it. Adesanya has lost to Strickland. I get if du Plessis wins, but I don't know. Now, it would make more sense, honestly, to me than Khamzat Chimaev. I think Jared Cannonier should be next for the winner of this fight. We will talk about it once we get to the main event down the line. But again, 12 fights on this card. Let's be honest with ourselves. It's kind of a weak pay-per-view. It is. The main event really saves it. It's a very good main event. I'm very excited for the main event. But the rest of the card, in all fairness, is not very good. Raquel Pennington and Mayra Bueno Silva will face off for the vacant Women's Bantamweight Championship. Obviously, that belt was left by Amanda Nunes when she retired after she beat Irina Aldana last year in Canada. That's your vacant championship fight. The winner will likely await Juliana Pena next. Neil Magny, Mike Malott's a cool fight for Canada, but man, Chris Curtis, Marc-Andre Barriault, Arnold Allen, and Movsar Evloev, that rounds out your main card. And if you haven't seen, of course, back to the normal setup, at least for the rest of the year, well, until the summer. Again, thank you for dealing with the last couple of videos recorded on an iPhone and without the graphics on the screen and without the actual setup as well. So let's get into it, man. 12 fights in this card. And folks, if you haven't yet, though, make sure that subscribe button down below for some more UFC here on the channel. The PFL is supposed to have a card coming up soon. Cedric Doumbé and Anthony Pettis are supposed to be in the main event, so we'll get to that when the PFL does announce that card. So we're starting off this fight card with a fight in the flyweight division. Malcolm X Gordon takes on Jimmy Flick. So Malcolm Gordon's a flyweight who is 2-4. Jimmy Flick has just not been impressive. He's 1-2. So the Jimmy Flick story is weird. If you don't know it, comes into the UFC, beats Nate Smith on the Contender Series, gets a shot in the UFC, then beats Cody Durden in his first fight in the promotion, beats him by flying triangle choke, literally submission of the year in 2020. The guy is booked against Francisco Figueiredo later in 2021, pulls out of the fight because he retires. He retires from the sport of MMA at a local regional show in, I believe he lives in the Kansas City area, Oklahoma area, that part of the country, right? He retires, comes back in 2023, booked against Jeff Molina, fight falls through. Instead, it's Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson knocks him out in the first round. And he comes back, fights again, loses to Alessandro Costa by TKO in the second round. And Jimmy Flick's looked horrible in his last two fights. And I know the base of Jimmy Flick has been the grappling. It's been the grappling, it's been the jiu-jitsu, the skills, and it's just been the wrestling as a whole too. But he's looked horrible in his last two fights. He's shown no capability of striking with anyone. And as long as you can keep him on the feet, you're going to win the fight. Now, is Malcolm Gordon the best fighter? No, he's not. Malcolm Gordon is a low-level fighter. He's 14-7. This is a guy who's lost back-to-back fights. He lost by knockout in the first round, his last one over in England. Early in 2023, he gets knocked out by Jake Hadley in the first round. Gordon even missed weight in that fight, and he lost. Before that, he loses to Mohamed Mokaev in the third round by armbar. The guy picked up a win before that, back-to-back wins over the likes of Francisco Figueiredo and Denise Bondar. He loses his first two fights in the UFC. The Amir Albazi fight, no shame in losing that one. Albazi was originally booked to fight Brandon Moreno in a main event in Mexico City. Not happening. It's going to be Brandon Royval instead. And by the way, I'm recording this video on Friday night, so if anything changes to this card, so be it. I'll leave, an update in the description or in the comment section down below if something changes, if something major happens, like to say the main event, then I'll make a separate video on it. If it's the Raquel Pennington fight, I probably won't make a separate video. I'll just probably update you in the comment section. So again, if something happens to Strickland or du Plessis, knock on wood, there will be an updated video for that, but I highly, highly doubt that is going to happen. And also, I don't know what's going to happen on the Ankalaev and Johnny Walker card. As I just found out that Manel Kape's out of the fight with Nicolau. Maybe that fight gets moved here. I doubt it. If it does, I still think the same result happens. It'll probably be at a catch weight of 130. Anyways, this fight, again, Gordon hasn't been great. He's been knocked out by Sumadarji. He got arm triangled by Amir Albazi. He got arm barred by Mohamed Mokaev. He got knocked out by Jake Hadley. It hasn't been impressive results. Let's just be honest. It hasn't been. His wins are a verbal submission. It's an arm injury to Denise Bondar, and it's just been a fight where he just does enough to beat Francisco Figueiredo. However, I think Jimmy Flick's striking game is that bad that he's going to get knocked out by Malcolm Gordon. I think Malcolm Gordon's going to knock him out in the second round. He's in his hometown. Well, not home. He's from London, which I believe is Ontario. So I think that's London's obviously like within an hour of Toronto. I don't know my Canadian geography like that, but I'm pretty sure London's somewhat close to Toronto. So Gordon, though, fighting in Canada, Jimmy Flick has not impressed me at all. I think Malcolm Gordon wins. He's going to get the job done. Malcolm X Gordon is going to knock out Jimmy Flick in the second round. That's how bad Jimmy Flick has been recently. So give me Malcolm X Gordon to win the fight by second round knockout. Okay, our next fight, Priscilla Cachoeira taking on Jasudavicius. I don't understand the match being here other than the point like Jasudavicius needs to win in Canada. And Jasudavicius is good. Now, she ran into the wrong fighter her last fight. She lost to Tracy Cortez. Cortez, is very good in her own right. Cortez is undefeated in the UFC. She's 5-0. Cortez should really be looking to climb the ranks right now in the flyweight division after her win over Jasudavicius. Because again, Jasudavicius 3-2 in the UFC. Big win over Miranda Maverick. She dominated Miranda Maverick. Won the fight 2-1, but still looked really good in those 2 rounds. So I wouldn't say domination is the right word. However, Miranda Maverick's victory over Priscilla Cachoeira was domination, and that was Priscilla Cachoeira's last fight in Salt Lake City, Utah. Miranda Maverick went in there and absolutely dominated from pillar to post. Again, complete control on the ground. Priscilla Cachoeira had no answers, and it really feels like Priscilla Cachoeira's only chance in this fight is to catch Jasudavicius on the feet. Other than that, this will be all Jasudavicius in this fight. You look at what Jasmine has been able to do. Again, wins over Gabriela Fernandez and Miranda Maverick, and the win over Kay Hansen as well. But what Jasudavicius does well, she mixes her strikes and her grappling up real well. She can grapple when she needs to, and she can strike when she needs to too. So again, adjusting based on opponent, what she's going to need to do here, and what many fighters have been able to do to zombie girl Priscilla Cachoeira has been wrestle her, take her down, and hold her down. Again, you look at the losses that Cachoeira has had. You can say the wins, sure. It's a fight against Ariane Lipski where she knocks Lipski out. I'm not denying that Cachoeira has power. That's probably the best part of her game, and really the only part of her game. The Ji-Yeon Kim fight, she lost, but they gave her the win. It was stupid. But, the win over Gina Mazzani knocks Mazzani out. Mazzani's never been the best striker. And then Shanna Dobson has not been the best striker either, so she knocked those 2 out. But the losses, Valentina Shevchenko, was that a mismatch? Yes. But Shevchenko went in there and dominated her on the ground, submitted her. Molly McCann was able to take down Cachoeira and do it well too, and she was also able to outstrike Cachoeira as well. Luana Carolina went in there and beat up Priscilla Cachoeira on the feet. She knocked her down in that fight. You look at the fight against Jillian Robertson. Robertson does not play around. She takes Cachoeira down. She takes her back and gets a submission in the first round, even though Cachoeira tried to gouge Jillian Robertson's eye out in that fight. And the Miranda Maverick fight, again, Maverick dominated on the ground, got the armbar in the 3rd round. Who's to say Jasudavicius is not going to do the same exact thing? Will it be the most impressive fight? No. And Jasudavicius, in all fairness, should make this fight boring. This is a trap fight. You do not want to lose to a fighter like Cachoeira. And yes, Jasudavicius is coming off of a loss in her own right, and she is 34 years old. Cachoeira is 35, so you got to get it going at this point in your career at the women's flyweight division. But again, Jasudavicius just needs to go out here and win a fight in Canada. Again, we're picking another Canadian. We're gonna keep track of what the Canadians' records, at least I think, is gonna be. This fight though is meant for Jasudavicius to win in Canada. She's from Ontario as well. She's from St. Catharines, Ontario. Again, I don't know my Canadian cities and geography like that, but again, I know Ontario, Canada is the same place where London and where Toronto is. I kind of just know that, honestly, from professional wrestling. But anyways, like, I wouldn't know where Manitoba was, Winnipeg was, if it wasn't for Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho. But anyways, Jasudavicius, I think, is going to go out here and absolutely win this fight. It's just going to be a wrestling performance. She might even get a submission, because a lot of fighters have been able to get submissions off against Cachoeira. Like, you look at the fighters like Miranda Maverick, you look at Jillian Robertson, they've all been able to get submissions off of Priscilla Cachoeira. So I think it's incredibly possible. However, I think Jasudavicius is going to go out there and just dominate on the ground. Jasudavicius is going to be able to win this fight by unanimous decision. Next up, we've got a fight here between Johan Lainesse and Sam Patterson. This fight, I believe, was just put together, if I'm not mistaken. Lainesse is 9-2, fighting out of Canada. Sam Patterson, 10-2, fighting out of England. Lainesse is coming off of his fight where he lost to Mike Malott. You're going to see Mike Malott later on this card. Malott beat him by arm triangle choke in the first round, but again, Lainesse is 1-2 in the UFC, his first result being a loss to Gabe Green. Green was able to go out there and really just beat him on the feet, and then he parlayed that into his next fight where he did win against Darian Weeks. Close fight, UFC 279, it was in Las Vegas, pay-per-view card. Weeks outstrikes Lainesse in that fight. It's just not a great fight in all. You look at the scorecards, pretty much make the case Darian Weeks wins the fight, but they give it to Lainesse. I don't really understand that one, and now Lainesse again Then it comes back, loses to Mike Malott in the first round. It's a Canada versus Canada matchup, and Mike Malott wins the fight. And now you get Lainesse and Sam Patterson. Patterson, though, 0-1 in the UFC, coming off his first fight where he got dropped and knocked out. He was a favorite to beat Yanal Ashmoz. He was a big favorite to beat. He was a big favorite to beat Yanal Ashmoz, and he loses the fight. Ashmoz knocks him out in the first round. On the undercard of Usman Edwards 3 earlier this year. Big result in that one out of Sam Patterson losing. Obviously, that was a big shift because Patterson comes in the UFC. This is a guy who is undefeated, he's 10-1-1, still the only loss coming back in his second professional fight back in 2017. It is a huge result, it was a huge result in the career of Sam Patterson because he loses the fight. This is a guy who's coming off the Contender Series win where he wins by a rear naked choke. He wasn't expected to lose the fight. That's as simple as I can put it. He was not expected to lose the fight. This guy has gone through, again, multiple different promotions. He's coming from Brave, where he's able to go out there in Brave, and I don't think he ever won the Brave championship, but he went undefeated in Brave, got finishes by knockout and submission. He's supposed to beat a relatively unknown Yanal Ashmoz, who was, coming off a win in the PFL Challenger Series. But again, Ashmoz has since lost to Chris Duncan in the UFC by unanimous decision. Is Sam Patterson really the prospect that the UFC thought he was? I don't know. But what I do know is that Canada is going to lose a fight here because I think Sam Patterson is going to win. The odds are fairly close on this fight because, Johan Lainesse will have the advantage on the feet. I think Johan Lainesse has got a lot more power. I think, again, Lainesse is the better striker. However, on the ground, I think Sam Patterson is way superior to him. You look at Tapology, 64% of the votes going to Sam Patterson, 36% of the votes going to the Canadian in Johan Lainesse. Lainesse coming out of Quebec, Canada. So again, I know that is not in Ontario because they speak French in Quebec. But yeah, I think Patterson wins the fight. This guy, again, is huge for the lightweight division. That's where he fought his last fight. However, he's going to be fighting at 170 in this one. So again, he was 6'3", trying to cut all the way down to 155 pounds. He is instead going to fight 170 pounds in this fight. I'm not confident in the pick at all. I'm not going to lie. Again, Patterson is, you saw his last fight. He got dropped and, knocked out right away. And what does Johan Lainesse do? He kind of just swings and throws with power, and that's what he's going to try to do against Sam Patterson. And will it be successful? I don't know. And there's a chance that he just straight up goes out there and knocks out Sam Patterson. But there's also a chance Sam Patterson, shows what he tried to do in his first UFC fight, where he really didn't get the opportunity because the fight, really didn't take place that, there just wasn't much. Yanal Ashmoz was able to get Patterson down and, finish him on the ground. So Patterson wasn't able to show any of his grappling in that fight. But I think he's able to go out there, get a takedown against Johan Lainesse, and I think he's able to really excel on the ground. Because, again, Lainesse's losses in the UFC, arm triangle loss to Mike Malott. I know Malott's really good. He's going to be on the main card of this card. And Gabe Green's, solid as well. Patterson, I think, is able to, pick the bones here. I think he's able to beat Johan Lainesse. I'm going to take him to win the fight. Again, I think Lainesse is the favorite in this one in Canada. I am going to go with the underdog, though. I'm going to go with Sam Patterson to pick up the win. I'm going to go by decision. I'm not confident in picking in a finish here. I'm really not. I'll go Sam Patterson by decision. It's a safe pick. A lot of people, though, are going by submission, but I will go a decision victory here for one Sam Patterson. Our next fight, Jillian Robertson returns to take on Polyana Viana. We talked about Robertson earlier with her win over Priscilla Cachoeira. Now she takes on the Brazilian here in Polyana Viana here. So another Canadian, of course, fighting on this one. Jillian Robertson, she is from, I don't actually know what part of Canada she is from. She trains out of Florida now. She's from Ontario. So again, in the area, fighting back in Canada, because the UFC is going to put as many Canadian fighters on this card as possible. But of course, coached by Dean Thomas now in Florida. She is 12-8 professionally, coming off her last loss where she lost to Tabitha Ricci, and Ricci showed truly how good she is in that last fight. Now, I know Ricci is coming off now a split decision loss to Lupita Godinez at Madison Square Garden at UFC 295. But Robertson, that fight against Ricci, again, it was a back and forth fight on the feet. Ricci got a couple takedowns, but primarily the fight was fought on the feet, and at Tabitha Ricci won a striking bout against Jillian Robertson. Now this is where this fight gets interesting with Polyana Viana, is because Viana can strike, not really. She did against Jin Yu Fry, and she knocked out Jin Yu Fry. And Jin Yu Fry is an older fighter for the weight class. Fry is no longer with the UFC. She's 11-10. She ended her UFC run in a 4-fight losing streak, and she's 39 years old, 38 years old, right? So again, a lot of fighters at Polyana Viana's level will knock out Jinyu Fry. It was just surprising because it's Polyana Viana, and that's not what she does. Polyana Viana is a grappler. She's a jiu-jitsu practitioner. She's got 8 wins by submission in the past. Again, she has actually been submitted twice as well, submitted twice as well, but normally you'd expect her to go out there and get a submission. She instead knocked out Jinyu Fry. Now, her last fight is a loss to Yasmin Lucindo. Lucindo submits her in the second round. You know, it is what it is. Lucindo is solid. She, of course, made her UFC debut back in San Diego, and then since then, she's won back-to-back fights over Brogan Walker and Viana. I think that fight really showed how good Lucindo is, but it's kind of hard to get a read on where Polyana Viana is in terms of the entire weight class right now because of that fight against Lucindo, because you really don't know truly how good Lucindo is. Sure, she loses to Yayargi, and then she beats Brogan Walker, and Walker, again, a fighter who probably shouldn't be in the UFC, and then she beats Polyana Viana, which, again, that's the fighter in question, right? Because you know what Robertson's going to bring? Robertson's going to bring great grappling. I mean, I think, it gets stated a lot, but her grappling victory over Rose Namajunas is huge, where she submitted Rose in the first round of that Fury Pro grappling match back in 2022. In 2023, she goes 1-1 in the octagon. She defeats an undefeated Piera Rodriguez in Rodriguez's third fight in the UFC. She goes out there and submits her by an armbar in the second round. And Robertson, again, she's not afraid to have fights in the UFC. Like, she'll take any fight, and she'll try to impose her will with her grappling. Again, 9 wins by submission for Jillian Robertson so far in the career. It's dependent on if she can have that same success on the ground against Viana. I don't know entirely how this fight's going to go. It does kind of remind me of the Miranda Maverick fight that Robertson had back in 2021. That was actually the last time Stipe Miocic fought, and Miocic is going to be fighting for a world championship in his next fight, but that's besides the point. You should just do Stipe and Aspinall for the interim belt while they wait, but whatever. Robertson went in that fight. Again, it was better grapplers going to win. Miranda Maverick was just so much stronger and just so much more physical than Robertson, and that allowed Maverick to win the fight. She won every single round on all 3 cards except for 1. We'll see who has the advantage in this one with grappling. I think Viana does have good jiu-jitsu skills, but, before I wasn't all that impressed with Robertson, but then again, what she's been able to do recently, the wins over Maria Agapova, again, the Rose win, I know it's a grappling match, but it still feels like a big deal that she went out there and submitted Rose Namajunas in 65 seconds. And then she beats Piera Rodriguez after that. Sure, she loses to Ricci, but I think in that sense, yes, Ricci is the better grappler. In this sense, I don't think Viana's a better grappler than Jillian Robertson. Sure, Viana's been able to get submissions over the likes of Emily Whitmire and Mallory Martin, but really in the UFC, who has she submitted who's still in the UFC? She hasn't. She's lost to JJ Aldridge. She's lost to Hannah Cyphers, Veronica Hardy, Tabitha Ricci, Yasmin Lucindo. Her wins are Jinyu Fry no longer in the UFC, Mallory Martin no longer in the UFC, Emily Whitmire no longer in the UFC, Maya Stevenson no longer in the UFC. She's beat 4 fighters who are no longer in the promotion. I'm taking Jillian Robertson to win. I think she's going to get a submission. I've seen Viana submitted before. Her last fight, she got submitted by Yasmin Lucindo. Robertson's going to catch her. Canada goes to 3-1. It's a second-round submission win for Jillian Robertson. Okay, our next one. It is a rematch of the original fight on the Contender Series. We've got Siri City taking on Ramon Tavares. Very rare something like this does happen. You get 2 guys who first fought on the Contender Series. I believe this first time this has ever happened, I think just in general. Besides just an immediate rematch as well, where it's 2 guys who originally fought in the Contender Series, September 5th, 2023. Tavares, City won. City drops Ramon Tavares early and finishes him. Sure, it is a very quick stoppage. It is. But City has Tavares hurt. I think if that fight keeps going, I think City really goes out there and gets that finish. Tavares, again, protests right away. City gets the contract. Dana White offers Tavares to come back, so he comes back in I think a month later. Was it a month later? Yeah, he comes back literally a month later, and he wins the fight by first-round knockout. He beats a guy who he was a plus 175 dog to. He beats him by 30-second knockout. That's big. Tavares did miss weight in the first City fight. He misses it by 0.3 pounds. The next fight that he has, that he wins, he hits weight. So I don't think that's really too much of a factor in terms of Ramon Tavares. But for Siri City, this is a guy who, again, wins his contract. He's not in charge of the referee. Siri City does not... he does not pick the referee. He does not tell the referee when to stop the fight. That's completely out of his hands. And if you're him, you get your UFC contract, and right away they want you to rematch this guy. I mean, sure, I get it to the point where, okay, he's already beat him. He's already knocked him out. Which is fair. He is an even smaller favorite though in the rematch than he was in the first one. So the first fight, Sidey was sitting at around -210. In this rematch, he's sitting at anywhere. You can get him at 175, 180, depending on the book. But again, he's a smaller favorite in the rematch because I guess of what Tavares did in his second fight in the Contender, where he did show his power. And yes, Tavares can swing, and he can swing big as well. My thing about this fight is, okay, you've got a guy in Series City who is from Burlington, Canada. Now Burlington, Ontario, Canada. So another Ontario guy. So in the area. Okay, so again, we're keeping our Canadian geography in mind here. But you get another Canadian on this card. There's a reason he's on this one. And again, I think someone's going to get knocked out. Tavares got a lot of power. He's fun for the weight class. I think Sidey's really fun for the weight class as well. That's why the UFC put this on the pay-per-view card. I mean, it's not on the pay-per-view portion, but it's on, again, a pay-per-view card. There's a reason they put it here because someone's probably going to get knocked out. But my thing with this fight is when you get immediate rematches, and I know Tavares has fought since the Sidey fight. He did fight and he did win in 30 seconds, sure. But it's an immediate rematch, and what really changes from the first fight? I know it was a quick stoppage, but I do believe if that fight kept going, Sidey was going to end up getting the knockout anyways. I think it was good on the UFC to give Tavares another shot in the Contender Series, and he wins, so good for him, he's in the UFC. But why do you just immediately remake this fight? I think this is a fight that you come back to if both these guys win, or even if both these guys lose, I think you go right back to it. Or if Sidey loses and Tavares wins, you go back to it. Right away just feels kind of quick. I think you could have waited on this one a little bit, but I get what they wanted to do. They want a knockout on the pay-per-view card, and they want the guy from Canada in Series City on this card as well. And I think he wins. Again, I don't really see anything that changes from the first fight. I think Series City is going to win the rematch. He's going to get it done by first round knockout. I think nothing changes. I think both these guys are going to go for it right away. I think Sidey's going to be pissed off that he has to fight this fight again. And he just wants to go out there and get a knockout in front of the home crowd. I think that's what he's going to do. I'm going to take the fighter coming out of Canada. We're going to say Canada is now 3-1 to start this card, with the only loss coming from Lainesse, who is a favorite. But yeah, I think Sidey wins. I think Tavares is good, sure, but I think Sidey's just able to catch him yet again. I think it'll be a fun fight for however long it does last. I really like the striking out of both these guys. I don't see it hitting the mat. I think both these guys, again, I think Tavares is actually a little bit better on the ground, but I really don't see it going there. I think you will see a striking fight. Tavares has been knocked out prior to the Sidey loss as well, so I think Sidey is going to get it done. Sidey's going to beat him by first round knockout. Okay, our next fight here comes with my guy, Charles Jourdain, representing Canada from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and he'll be taking on Sean Woodson. So Woodson comes into this fight after a win over Dennis Bazooka by unanimous decision. I always butcher his name, but it's unanimous decision victory for Sean Woodson in that one. He was originally supposed to fight Jesse Butler going into that card. Butler is not the greatest UFC name. Is Butler still the promotion? He might be. I don't know. He just pulled out of his last fight, so I don't know if Butler's still the promotion. It was supposed to be an alley-oop win for Sean Woodson. You know, he didn't get as easy of a fight. I think Dennis was a somewhat tougher fight, but he still goes out there and wins it by unanimous decision. Woodson implements his game on the ground and just wins the fight. It's a good win for Sean Woodson, a guy who at one point was considered a very high-level prospect. A really high-level prospect. This guy comes into the UFC, he's undefeated. He flying knee TKOs Terrence McKinney in the Contender Series, comes in, beats Kyle Bochniak his first fight, comes into the Apex and gets subbed by Julian Erosa in a fight where he drops Erosa earlier on in the fight, but then loses it. And ever since then, it kind of has been for Sean Woodson chasing what hype he originally had. But in all fairness, he has not lost since the Erosa fight. He beats Youssef Zalal in kind of a lackluster fight that he wins. He beats Colin Anglin after that, but is Anglin really a UFC name? No. He has a draw against Luis Saldana, where that fight was odd. Saldana drops him twice in the first round, but Woodson comes back to arguably make it a draw. I think Saldana wins it, I'll be honest with you. I don't really see the draw, but still on the record, it shows a draw for Woodson. And then he beats Dennis Bazooka in his last fight. He'll get Charles Jourdain, though. And Charles Jourdain is very good. 6-5-1 in the UFC. Don't let that record, take away from how good of a fighter Charles Jourdain is. This guy is super talented. And I think most people have seen him from his Kron Gracie fight, where I was expecting him to just completely drown Kron Gracie. Gracie, unfortunately, just didn't do much in that fight. It was very reminiscent of what Claudio Puelles did against Dan Hooker back in the day, right? But Jourdain in his last fight, again, he can wrestle when he needs to. He can strike, and he can also wrestle when he needs to as well. He can wrestle, he can grapple. You saw what he was able to do to Ricardo Ramos in his last fight. He submits Ramos by guillotine choke in the first round, wins the performance of the night bonus. His win before that, if you Don't think about the Kron Gracie fight. The win over Landa Venata, submission win in the first round as well. But what does Charles Jourdain also do? He can strike and he can go. I think, again, a lot of people know him for that moment at the end of the Andre Ewell fight where he's dominating Ewell. He's going to beat him 30-27 at the end of the fight. He hits him with the "This is Sparta" kick. He front kicks him and puts him on his ass at the end of the fight. Jourdain is good, and he is not afraid to mix things up on the feet. Both these guys do share a common loss. It is Juicy J, Julian Erosa, but Erosa just finds ways to win fights sometimes. Where Jourdain does struggle some, I will say, is with the offensive wrestler. Look at the Nathaniel Wood fight in Paris, France in 2022. Look at the Shane Burgos fight on Long Island in summer of 22 as well. Shane Burgos didn't have the fight we expected him to have against Charles Jourdain. We didn't have the back and forth war style of fight that Burgos has had against guys like Josh Emmett, that he's had against guys like Edson Barbosa, like Clay Collard now. He fought, a fight that he can go out there and win, and he just laid on Jourdain for 15 minutes and won a majority decision. Well, not 15 because he lost a round, but still for 10 minutes. Nathaniel Wood fight. Again, Wood's an offensive wrestler. He was able to put Jourdain down. He's able to limit what Jourdain was able to get up on the feet with striking. But in fights where guys aren't able to do that, Jourdain has a lot of success. And like in the Ricardo Ramos fight, again, Ramos tried to be that dominant wrestler, and Jourdain caught him from the bottom with the guillotine choke. Will Sean Woodson be that type of wrestler? I think he's going to have to try. I don't think Woodson wants to get involved in a striking bout with Jourdain because I think he will lose. Woodson in the UFC has been a good wrestler so far. He's shooting at an 80% clip so far. Now, he doesn't shoot all that many takedowns. I legitimately think the only takedowns he's ever shot in his career actually in the UFC came in his last fight. But he did go 4 for 5, and he did pick his spots against Dennis Bazooka, a guy that he thought he was going to be a better wrestler than, and he was able to do so. Again, Woodson's a very good defensive wrestler. This is a guy who has stuffed 83% of his takedowns so far in the UFC. So he's able to keep the fight where he wants it, normally on the feet. But in this fight, I think he's going to want it on the ground. Now, I think there's a possibility that he can get submitted on the ground. I think that's definitely possible if he tries to go down there. But also, I just think this fight's tough for Woodson because no matter where you go, it's going to be trouble. Jourdain's going to keep pushing forward. He's going to keep putting that pace on you. He's always going to walk forward in a fight. So Jourdain's going to make it tough on Woodson on the feet. And even if Woodson tries to switch it up on the ground, he's going to have trouble as well. That's going to be troubling for Sean Woodson also. If, again, Jourdain is able to take him down, if Woodson does take him down, Jourdain is threatening with the takedown. I just think it's an incredibly tough fight for Sean Woodson in this one. I think Jourdain is better everywhere. And Jourdain, again, it brings such a tough challenge to guys because of his striking, because of the pressure that he puts on guys in the feet. There's a reason Shane Burgos, who is known for that same style of crazy back and forth fights on the feet, try to take Jourdain down, and that's, what eventually won him that fight. But there's a reason he did that. It's because Charles Jourdain is so good on the feet and so good at just making a war of things on the feet as well. I'm taking Charles Jourdain to beat Sean Woodson. I'm taking him by decision. I can see the knockout, but I think you just see 15 minutes of pure chaos because Woodson's not able to take him down, or Woodson chooses not to take him down. I think if that's the case, Jourdain is going to completely rip him on the feet. Give me Charles Jourdain to win the fight. Keeping Canada, again, in the win column. 4-1 for Canada as we go to our next one. It's going to be in the bantamweight division. It is Brad Katona. He is the Ultimate Fighter now, ×2. Katona takes on Garrett Armfield in this fight. Interesting matchmaking, I would say, because I feel like on paper, when I just thought about this fight, I'm like, I feel like it's a little too much for Armfield. I think it is. Because this is a guy in Armfield who's 1-1 in the UFC, has a loss to David Onama. He's got a win over Toshiomi Kazama in his last fight where he knocks him out in the first round. But is Kazama really a UFC guy? I don't know. He's 0-2 in the UFC, losses to Rinya Nakamura and Garrett Armfield. He was supposed to fight in 2024. He already pulled out of the fight. It was supposed to be in March. So it's hard to really place Garrett Armfield because Garrett Armfield didn't have the most impressive resume outside of the UFC. He fought a lot of cans. I know his last 2 fights before heading to the UFC weren't horrible guys, but he comes in his first fight and loses to David Onama by arm triangle in the second round. It was a fight he was a plus 550 dog in. Now he gets Brad Katona, a guy who's 3-2 in the UFC, who has ran through, in Chael Sonnen's eyes, the toughest tournament in all of sports, the Ultimate Fighter. The first run, very impressive. Beats Kyler Phillips, beats Bryce Mitchell, then wins the Ultimate Fighter. beats Matthew Lopez in the UFC, lose to Merab Dvalishvili, lose to Hunter Azure. They cut him. He comes back, he goes to Brave, he wins 4 fights in Brave CF, becomes their bantamweight champion, defends the championship, comes back to the Ultimate Fighter, beats Carlos Vera, beats Timur Valiev, and then beats Cody Gibson by unanimous decision to rework his way in the UFC. If you count the Ultimate Fighter fights under his UFC record, because they have been, with the exception of one, because I don't think Carlos Vera is getting the shot in the UFC, at least I don't think so just yet, with the exception of one. I mean, Vera was 36-2 on the show. It's kind of weird they labeled him a prospect. But anyways, if you take, we'll include the Carlos Vera fight, but still, if you include those, this guy is 7-2 in the UFC, Brad Katona. He's just fought 4 of them on the Ultimate Fighter, but their wins against Timur Valiev. Is my camera dead? Oh man, my card's full. I'll finish this video and we'll change the camera. I'll finish this section of this video, and then I'll fix the camera. But he's beat UFC level guys like Bryce Mitchell, like Kyler Phillips, like Timur Valiev on the Ultimate Fighter. They just don't get included in his UFC record because they weren't 3 rounds. Some of them were 2. Now you book him against Garrett Armfield. This is incredibly tough for Armfield. I really don't think, I think it's bad matchmaking. I think it's too much for Garrett Armfield, I'll be honest. I think Brad Katona is that good. You know, he's from Dublin, Ireland, obviously. Or sorry, he's fighting at Dublin, Ireland. I don't know where he's from in Canada, so we're just checking. He's from, okay, Winnipeg, Manitoba. All right, so still though, he's an SPG Ireland guy now in Katona. I think he trains in, I don't know, he's either, he trains at Winnipeg too, though. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what Katona's doing with his gym situation right now, but it's just such a tough fight for Armfield. Like, all right, Armfield looked good on the feet against a guy, again, who probably shouldn't be in the promotion, Kazama, in his last one. David Onama was able to take him down and submit him. Brad Katona excels on the ground. Katona's able to get fights down there. And also, again, you saw in the Cody Gibson fight back in Boston on that UFC 292 card, headlined by Sean O'Malley and Aljamain Sterling. Katona got into a fist fight with Cody Gibson, a back and forth war on the feet, and he won the fight by decision. Katona can do it any way you want him to, and I just think everywhere, with the exception of the power Garrett Armfield has, that's the one exception, I think Brad Katona's got it everywhere else. Give me Brad Katona to win this fight. I think he will get it done by decision. I think Katona just takes it whatever way he wants it. Brad Katona picks up the victory, and again, Canada wins yet again, so we're done with the prelims now, and Canada is 6-1. Of course, the first and last fights on the main card do not feature Canadian fighters, but so far, 6-1 for Canada. Give me Brad Katona with the unanimous decision victory. So like I mentioned earlier, there's 2 fights in this card that don't include Canadian fighters. This is one of them, Arnold Allen and Movsar Evloev. So this is a big fight for the featherweight division. It really is. In a division that is in need of title challengers. I know they are getting Aljamain Sterling, and Aljamain Sterling is booked against Calvin Kattar. Now, you can maybe make the case that he can get a title shot just off that one win. You know that Brian Ortega is fighting Yair Rodriguez, but if Volk can beat Ilia Topuria, you can't give either of those guys another fight against Volk. So then you look down the weight class, you think Max Holloway can't get another shot. Max Holloway does the Josh Emmett fight, but you're looking for title challengers. One title challenger can emerge from this fight. We have seen it before where a guy loses to Max Holloway, wins a fight after, then gets a title shot. I'm talking about Yair Rodriguez. So Arnold Allen is 100% still in play for a featherweight championship opportunity. We are saying this because of the dominance Alexander Volkanovski has had amongst the weight class. Now, there is a lot of hype building on Ilia Topuria that Topuria is going to be able to get this win against Volk. We will see. Again, Volk's last fight was not the greatest against Islam Makhachev. We will see what happens, but that's what's been going around in my mind, at least, thinking about this fight, that this is a title eliminator between Evloev and Arnold Allen. Now, ultimately, I think the weight class goes like this. I'll just give my predictions right now. This is if Volk wins. I'm not predicting the Volk fight, but I'm just saying if Volk wins and you need title challengers, this is likely what happens. So Max Holloway, Josh Emmett. If Josh Emmett does beat Max Holloway, which I think no one's expecting him to, but if Emmett does beat Max Holloway, Emmett immediately inserts himself into a title fight. I don't think he's going to. So Josh Emmett is going to lose. Max Holloway is going to somewhat advance in that title eliminator. This is a title eliminator as well. I think if Aljamain Sterling beats Calvin Kattar, they will do Aljamain Sterling versus Alexander Volkanovski. If he loses to Calvin Kattar, then Calvin Kattar will likely fight Max Holloway, and the winner of this fight slides into the title fight. If Aljo wins, then the winner of this fight likely has to go through Holloway. I think that's kind of how you think of this weight class right now. I know it would set up a rematch with Arnold Allen and Max Holloway, but you gotta do what you gotta do at this point. You could shuffle it around with Yair and Ortega, but when you're looking at guys who The winner of Yair and Ortega, they should be 2 fights away. So if they are able to win that fight, or whoever wins that fight should, if they can win another fight, should be in a title fight. So again, there are challengers. It's just dependent on what happens with Volk. Now, Arnold Allen, Movsar Evloev. Immediately, I thought about the Mads Burnell fight with Arnold Allen when I thought about this fight because of the amount of success Mads Burnell had on the ground against Arnold Allen. Now, that fight is now 5.5 years ago. It's a long time ago, but it's the last time that Arnold Allen has really been tested on the ground. No one else has really tested him all that much on the ground. Like, yeah, Gilbert Melendez in Melendez's last fight, I do believe, at UFC 239, tried to take down Allen, but again, that's a shell of Gilbert Melendez's former self. Sodiq Yusuff tried to take him down once. Dan Hooker didn't try. Kattar didn't try. Obviously, Max Holloway's not going to try. So the last guy to really shoot on Arnold Allen was Mads Burnell, and Makwan Amirkhani, Mr. Finland, did before that as well. Movsar Evloev is going to shoot. Movsar Evloev is going to try to take down Arnold Allen, because that's all he does. I think the Diego Lopez win at the time that Evloev had in New Jersey didn't seem all that great, because at the time, who is Diego Lopez, right? That was the thing. And obviously Lopez has since won back-to-back fights and looks very good and looks like he should be in the top 15 very quickly if he's not already. But again, Evloev still beat the guy. And before that, he beat Dan Ige, he beat Hakeem Dawodu. You know, the only close fight he's had is Nick Lentz, which was surprisingly close. I don't know how, but Evloev has been able to dominate on the ground in most of these fights recently, and who's to say that's at least not going to be the game plan here against Arnold Allen in this one? I mean, it's going to have to be the game plan. That's what he's going to try. He's going to try to take down Arnold Allen, and he's going to look to keep Arnold Allen down. Allen's going to try on the feet. You know, again, you know he's got the striking game. He looked at the knockout over Dan Hooker. The win over Calvin Kattar is a leg check, but still, it's a knee injury. Whatever, he lost to Holloway. Sure, a lot of people are going to lose, or a lot of guys in this weight class are going to lose striking fights against Max Holloway. It's just a given. When you look at this fight between Allen and Evloev, I'm taking Movsar Evloev. I think Evloev is going to be able to win this one. Again, I draw immediately back to Arnold Allen, Mads Burnell. I know Allen ends up winning the fight by guillotine choke, but Mads Burnell takes him down 6 times and has him down for about 10 minutes before Allen's able to get that submission late in the third round. Right? I know he picks up the win, but I think Evloev is too advanced to the point where he's not going to let that happen to him. And again, I understand that was 5 years ago now, or 6 years ago almost. But still, it's the last time Allen's really been tested down there, and Evloev is a way different test than you are going to get anywhere else in this weight class, with the exception of some other, top-level guys. But really, Evloev's pace, or at least style, is something that you are only going to see in this weight class out of Movsar Evloev. I'm not completely sold on the guy just yet, but in terms of pure wrestling, I think stylistically it's a very tough matchup for Arnold Allen. And I think that's why Movsar Evloev is going to win the fight. I'm going to take Movsar Evloev to win. Again, no Canadian fighter in this one, so we don't have to check the Canadian fighter record here. But I'm taking Evloev. I'm taking him by decision. I think people are going with Arnold Allen. I think the favorite is Evloev, but I see a lot of people going with that underdog line, plus money at plus 135 for Allen. I understand why people are going to that, but again, I don't think the Lopez win isn't as bad as it seems now. Give me Movsar Evloev to stay undefeated, to go to 18-0. It's going to become pretty tough to deny this guy of a title fight soon. I think the only thing stopping him would be either a Josh Emmett win or an impressive Aljamain Sterling win. Other than that, I think Evloev might be next for the belt. I don't know. On to our next one. Canadians are back. It's going to be Marc-Andre Barriault, the French-Canadian, taking on Chris Curtis. Curtis fighting on the same card, of course, as his sparring partner and friend, I guess, I'm pretty sure, Sean Strickland. Curtis is fighting Marc-Andre Barriault in this one. Marc-Andre Barriault is coming off back-to-back wins, a knockout win over Julian Marquez, and a fight of the night win over Eric Anders back in Canada, UFC 289, Nunes and Aldana. Chris Curtis has not been all that impressive recently. He just hasn't. He had the fight against Nasruddin Imavov, accidental clash of heads. Curtis was losing until they stopped the fight. It's better for the career of Chris Curtis that he didn't end up finishing that fight. It's okay. It's a no contest. He loses to Gastelum. Curtis is a sore loser. Let's just say it how it is. I like Chris Curtis, but he does not take losing well. And sure, that's fair. I don't think anyone should take losing a fist fight well. But again, he complains every time he loses. The 2 fights he has lost in the UFC, Hermansson and Gastelum, he's complained about both those guys. Either the Gastelum fight, I think it was that he should have won the decision, and the Hermansson fight was that Hermansson was running from him. Well, okay, partially that was Chris Curtis' fault too, though, because who's getting picked apart from the outside by a wrestler in Jack Hermanson. Now, the Joaquin Buckley win is very good. The way he's able to knock out Buckley UFC 282 is very impressive. However, that's over a year ago now. What did he do into 2023? A loss to Gastelum, sure, a competitive fight, but then a loss to Nasruddin Imavov. Now, the Gastelum fight doesn't look as good anymore because what happened to Kelvin Gastelum in his last fight? He got dominated by Sean Brady in Austin, Texas. Not ideal. Curtis, though, I think this is a levels fight. Sure, Curtis hasn't been great, but Chris Curtis does own a win over Brendan Allen. He has a win over Phil Hawes, who we'll see what he does against Botello. I don't know yet if he beat Rodolfo Botello or not. But Curtis is very, very skilled and very talented. He's still very good. I know Curtis is getting up there in age. He's, 36 now? Fighting again out of Extreme Couture in Vegas, originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. He's going to get Marc-Andre Barriault, power bar. I've never been all that impressed with Barriault. I just haven't. I know he's won back-to-back fights, but again, that's because Julian Marquez and Eric Anders, two guys who seem like they're kind of over the hill at this point. Anthony Hernandez was able to dominate Barriault on the ground. Chidi Bang Bang was able to knock out Marc-Andre Barriault in the first round in 16 seconds back in 2022. I think Curtis is all around the better striker. I think Curtis, again, the way he was able to set traps in the Buckley fight was very impressive. If he's able to knock out Joaquin Buckley, he will definitely be able to knock out Marc-Andre Barriault as well. This is the fight that Chris Curtis gets back on the winning track. Curtis is a slow starter, so we're going to go second round knockout for Chris Curtis. It's going to take him a minute. Barriault, I don't know, Barriault's kind of a slow starter too, so I don't know who's going to win that first round, but when it gets into the second round, I think Chris Curtis is able to win. I think he's able to beat the Canadian coming out of Quebec, Canada, so that will send the Canadians down to 6-2 because I think Curtis is able to pick up the victory. So Chris Curtis gets it done. Again, I think he's just the way far superior striker. I feel like it's somewhat of a levels fight. Curtis goes from fighting Imavov and Gastelum and Buckley and Hermanson to fighting a lower level guy who's not completely low level, but again, just lower than what Curtis is, or at least the guys Curtis has been fighting as well, and Marc-Andre Barriault. Give me Chris Curtis to win the fight, winning this one by second round TKO. Actually, I forgot. There's actually 3 fights that don't have Canadians. I forgot. Raquel Pennington and Mauro Bueno Silva. There's no Canadians in that fight. I think I just forgot that there wasn't a Canadian because I just don't give a damn about that fight. But anyways, we'll get to that one in a second. First up, Neil Magny and Mike Malott. Obviously, Malott is going to be the Canadian fighter on this card. He is training out of Team Alpha Male, though, in Sacramento. I believe that's where he is, I think. But he gets Neil Magny. Magny, again, has had a long, and I mean long list of fights. Magny's been there, done that multiple times over. Mike Malott, though, undefeated in the UFC, 3-0, comes into the promotion. He beats Mickey Gall, of all people, in his first fight, then beats Johan Lainesse by arm triangle choke, and then submits Adam Fugit by guillotine choke in the fight after that. Mike Malott is very good. He can win on the feet. He can also win on the ground. The UFC are very high on this guy. How do you know? They just put him in the video game and they're advertising it. Not many guys are in the UFC video game. It sucks. Like, they just put Jairton Almeida in the game. They just put Mauro Bueno Silva, who is fighting for a world championship this weekend, in the video game. They don't have many fighters in the game, but they just put Mike Malott in the game. That means they think highly of him. It just, honestly, right? Like, Ian Gary was just put in the game as well. I think his rating's 99 overall when it comes to being a cuck. But I mean, honestly, Sean O'Malley's in the same realm, but it's fine. That's besides the point. Mike Malott and Neil Magny is an interesting fight because, again, Malott has been good striking-wise, he's been good grappling-wise so far in the UFC, but Neil Magny is that real good test that you are going to get. I believe Magny is still ranked. He's ranked at 13, so this is the spot for Mike Malott to get ranked in the weight class in a very, very good welterweight division. I mean, it's still full of names. Unfortunately, it seems like the UFC 300 main event is going to be Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad, which disgusts me, but still, if Colby could have, I don't even want to talk about the fight that Colby fought, but man, if Colby was able to beat Leon, it would probably get Colby Usman 3 at 300, but no, we're getting Leon. Man, lol. As I drink my UFC body armor water. Don't ask why I have this. It's actually good water. But anyways, it's a very good welterweight division. It really is. I mean, Edwards, Usman, Muhammad, Rakhmonov, Burns, Colby, Wonderboy, Sean Brady, Jeff Neal, Vicente Luque, Ian Gary. That's the top 10. Jack Della Maddalena is 11. Kevin Holland's 12. Magny's 13. Chiesa's 14. Hanat Fakhretdinov, who is undefeated in the UFC, is at 15. That's how loaded this welterweight division is. It's always been loaded, and it is still loaded. So when, again, Mike Malott, again, he will be adding on to the many lists, the long list of prospects trying to break into the top 5 and become the champion. Again, Bilal Muhammad still hasn't got a shot at the world championship. Shavkat Rakhmonov is coming up. Sean Brady's coming up. Vicente Luque and Jeff Neal, they've been around, but still, Dylan Madalena's coming up. Machado Gary's coming up. Fakir Tinov is coming as well. There are very talented guys in this division. Mike Malott seems like another one of those guys. I think he's able to beat Neil Magny here. Magny has been put in these spots before where he's kind of used as a stepping stone. They do this to him all the time because he's Neil Magny, because Magny has been in so many fights. This will be walk number 32 in the octagon for Neil Magny. And again, the guy has been around the UFC. His first fight came at UFC 157. Neil Magny first fought in the UFC before any women's fight in the UFC. It's been that long since he's been in the promotion. Shout out to him. He's gonna, this is what, year 11 for Magny in the UFC. And again, he's gonna be one of these guys. If he keeps fighting, maybe he can break some of Jim Miller's records when Miller does decide to go. But again, Malott, I think, is in the position that Ian Machado Gary was in when he beat Magny, when Gilbert Burns was in, when Shavkat was in, when these guys need a big, they need a big performance on a big card. They throw Neil Magny into the fire and they say, okay, go try to beat this up and coming guy, and he's not able to. Mike Malott's gonna do the same thing that a lot of these guys have done to Neil Magny. I will give credit to Neil Magny. He's a tough guy to finish on the feet. He's a very tough guy to finish. He's hard, it's hard to hit him. He is very susceptible of being submitted though. And that's where Mike Malott is going to go. Mike Malott will not be able to find the knockout in the first round. He will switch it up in the second round, go to the grappling, and that's where he finds his success, and that's where he beats Neil Magny. Mike Malott is going to submit Magny in the second round. He's from Ontario, Canada, training at Team Alpha Male now in Sacramento, California, but still, give the win to the Canadians. They have 9 fights in this card. I think they go 7-2 because Mike Malott picks up the submission win over Neil Magny. It's just a tough fight for Magny because of what Malott brings. He has not been beat so far. The striking's good and the grappling's good as well. Everything points to me for a Mike Malott victory. Malott continues the hype. He's the next big Canadian star. Malott wins. The reason he's in the spot, Malott wins by second round submission. On to the co-main event. It is for the Bantamweight Championship. Juliana Pena is not in this spot because apparently she is still injured because she had to pull out the original title fight in the trilogy against Amanda Nunes last year. Yeah, it's Raquel Pennington and Mayra Bueno Silva. Now, I'm going to get this out of the way with Juliana Pena. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Like or dislike Juliana Pena, you kind of still want to see her fight though. And it's just like, I do get sick of Juliana Pena. I do. Like, I watched the Ultimate Fighter season with Juliana Pena. I got really annoyed with her. But at least it's something in this division. Have you heard anything out of Raquel Pennington or Mayra Bueno Silva going into this fight? The only thing I've heard is that Mayra Bueno Silva, I don't know if this is a fake quote or not. I saw it on Twitter. This might have been completely fake. If it's real, baby. It wouldn't surprise me if it's real. So a quote from Mayra Bueno Silva saying, nobody gives a damn about this fight. I don't know, again, it probably got taken out of context if it's real. I don't know if it's real or not, but that's the most amount of press this fight has got. All the attention on this card is going to be thrown at Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis. And then it's going to be thrown on Evloev and Allen, and then Mike Malott, and then, all the Canadian fighters on this card. And then also there's a 5-round title fight on this card as well between Raquel Pennington, who was actually on a huge winning streak, who has gotten a championship spot before in a main event of a pay-per-view, and Mayra Bueno Silva, who was on a somewhat big winning streak of 3 fights because the Holly Holm fight got overturned. And now here she is in a spot to win a world championship, trying to bring one back again for Brazil. Oh man. Again, so hate Juliana Pena, like her, it doesn't matter. Like, at least she brings something to the weight class. I'm not all that intrigued in a Raquel Pennington and Mayra Bueno Silva fight. Holly Holm intrigues me just because she's Holly Holm. Nothing gets me excited, I'm sorry, to watch Raquel Pennington or Mayra Bueno Silva fight for a world championship. I'm just not. I'll break it down for you. Mayra Bueno Silva's best chance to win this fight is on the ground. I'll give her this. She's very good with her submissions. However, her run to the championship is maybe the weakest I've ever seen in a while. Wu Yanan, Stephanie Egger, Lena Landsberg. Technically, the Holly Holm fight doesn't count. It's no contest. It got overturned. Oh, God, I think, okay. I believe what came out of the Silva camp was that it was a drug is an ADHD drug, I believe is what they said it was. However, it's Ritalinic acid. That's what the Nevada State Athletic Commission came up with. It was a main event. She beats Holly Holm with a standing ninja choke. A ninja choke is basically when you just get the arm completely in and just, it's a tight choke, what she got on Holly Holm. And it was a very nice choke too. She gets, Holm stands up, boom, ninja choke, fight over. It was impressive. But still, the failed drug test is interesting. However, UFC disregards that. They give her a title shot anyway. Okay, fine. I mean, again, who else would you give it to at this point? If you are being honest, who else do you give it to? If Pena can't fight right now, you can't give an immediate fight to Aldana. Ketlin Vieira just lost to Raquel Pennington. Legitimately, the only other fighter is Holly Holm. And then the UFC would have to go the full route of just saying, no, Mayra Bueno Silva's a drug. She shouldn't get the fight. That's the only way they could have pushed for that. But I don't know. I think she got suspended by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. But I think it's just up now. I think it was like, what was it, 6 months? Or she got suspended by whoever. Like she couldn't fight. It might have just been 3 months or something. But I believe she got suspended because they had to overturn the win. This isn't something as simple as, it's a marijuana case. Like most, you remember a couple of years ago when marijuana was still illegal for fighters to take before fights. That one you could, kind of understand. There is a philosophy behind that with, okay, like weed does make guys fight better, so you can kind of take that into account. But that wasn't as big as something like this because it's somewhat of an unknown drug that the Silva camp says shouldn't affect the fight, but you never know. Right? You never know how it goes. But still, Silva is going to get the fight against Raquel Pennington. I will give Silva something, though. Her grappling's very good. She's got very good jiu-jitsu. I think she's got really good jiu-jitsu. That makes it a tough matchup for Juliana Pena if she fights her. I think Juliana Pena is cheering for Raquel Pennington because that's the style of fight that Juliana Pena wants. Raquel Pennington can fight takedowns, sure, but she's primarily a brawler who has been taken down before by the likes of Chesson, Aspen Ladd, Penny Kianzad, Mary Renault. Fighters have been able to take down Raquel Pennington, but she has been able to win all those fights that I just listed off. The Ketlin Vieira fight was good. She wins it by split decision. Is it kind of boring? Kind of. But Pennington is going to bring that brawling style. It's something that you just don't see all that often anymore. Pennington doesn't give a damn. She will get hit. You've seen those fights before, early UFC days where she is bloodied and battered, and she still wins. That clip where she wins with a bulldog choke, right? Pennington does not give a damn. She's going to go in there and she's going to fight her ass off to try to win the fight, right? I will give her that too. Like, it doesn't have hype at all. Am I all that excited? Not really, but it's a title fight. It is what it is. It's probably the weakest title fight in a very long time on both sides of the spectrum. But when you're looking for a winner, I think it's going to be Bueno Silva. Yeah, I think Bueno Silva is actually going to get the belt here. I think she's going to win this fight. She's going to submit Raquel Pennington in the third round, and then people are going to super hype up her ground game. I think people are going to really hype up the ground game of Bueno Silva, and then I think she's going to have a lot of trouble with Juliana Pena. I just think she is. I think people underestimate Juliana Pena and clown Juliana Pena because of her last fight against Nunes, but it's still Amanda Nunes. Still is. I think Pena can probably beat both these fighters. I think she can. We will see. I think Silva's definitely a way tougher fight. But I think people are going to really hype up the jiu-jitsu game of Bueno Silva. I think she might drop the first round and immediately just go straight into wrestling and grappling in the second and third and eventually get that submission in the third round and beat Pennington down there. It's all dependent, though, if she can get the takedown. She's been able to do it against fighters like Lena Landsberg. Stephanie Egger took her down stupidly, and Silva was able to get the armbar off her back. Pennington's not going to be that dumb and try to, again, take Silva down because Pennington knows where she's best at in this fight, and it's going to be in the striking game. Silva's striking has improved. It's still not on the level of Raquel Pennington. If Pennington's able to keep the fight on the feet, she will win the world championship. However, I think Mayra Bueno Silva is able to get this fight down. I think she keeps the belt in Brazil. I think, again, it goes from Nunes to Silva. Mayra Bueno Silva, somehow, some way, is going to become the world champion. You know who has beat Mayra Bueno Silva in her last loss? Down in the flyweight division. That's where Bueno Silva came from. Manon Fiorot. Fiorot is going to be fighting Erin Blanchfield in Atlantic City, New Jersey, I believe in the spring. The winner of that fight is going to be fighting for the world title next. I'm just saying it's a completely beatable champion, and that 135 is a very weak division that, again, a fighter like Fiorot can come up from 25 and win the belt very quickly, I think. I think 135 is extremely weak. I think this title is going to get passed back and forth for a long time. I think there's a chance that a 43-year-old Holly Holm can end up with the belt at some point. Seriously, I think there's a chance. Yeah, but still, Mayra Bueno Silva is going to become and new world champion. Silva wins the fight by 3rd round submission. And now the fight that you've all been waiting for, the main event, the best fight on this card, Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis. What a fight. What a fight. Sean Strickland, the slight favorite, minus 120, 130-ish. Du Plessis, you can get him anywhere from plus 110 to plus 100. Sean Strickland obviously pulled off one of the greatest upsets in UFC title history, where he went out there and completely dominated. He 50-45'd Israel Adesanya. Originally supposed to be Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya. Du Plessis was injured, and now Dricus gets Sean Strickland here in Canada. Now the pre-fight build-up to this fight's been crazy. You look at the press conference, Du Plessis goes after Sean Strickland for getting beat by his dad as a kid. Dricus du Plessis said that he was going to beat Sean Strickland and give him PTSD of when his dad went and beat him in his room at night. That's deep stuff. I mean, seriously, on the same week where Colby Covington said he was going to out-wrestle Leon Edwards and bring him down to hell to meet his father, that same week, Dricus du Plessis says that against Sean Strickland. Yeah. This is a very emotionally charged fight. I haven't seen Strickland break like that until Du Plessis said that. Obviously, Strickland goes to his slurs that would get me taken off of YouTube if I said it. It's crazy though. This is a very big fight, and just based off the fight itself, it's a big fight because again, Sean Strickland's coming off a win over Israel Adesanya, where he looked very good. And Dricus du Plessis beat Robert Whittaker, something that nobody's been able to do other than Adesanya. So this fight is that good. It's a great fight. And I think, again, du Plessis, a lot of people thought he was sloppy, and sure, he wasn't the greatest technically sound before the Whittaker fight. He wasn't all that technically sound in the Brunson fight, or the Till fight, or the Tavares fight, or even the Trevin Giles fight. I made a whole video talking about Dricus du Plessis and his entire career in the UFC. I'll link that in the description if I remember. But again, du Plessis is, he was very, he was winning fights, but he's just getting out of them, ever so slightly. And it was a big thing that his conditioning, and he wasn't able to breathe, but he got his nose fixed, and he didn't look like he was breathing heavy in the Robert Whittaker fight. Really, I think fixed nose du Plessis is a whole nother animal. Sure, he does not fight in the most technically sound way, but Sean Strickland doesn't do that either. They're both different fighters than what the prototypical guys are. No one beats Robert Whittaker like that, but no one beats Israel Adesanya like that either. That's why this fight is so good. I think the ground advantage does go to Dricus du Plessis. Sean Strickland will not wrestle. If anything, du Plessis will wrestle. Du Plessis did take down Robert Whittaker. Kind of did it to prove a point almost in the first round. He won the first round, and he ends up knocking him out in the second round, right? It's interesting. Because, yes, Sean Strickland looked good in 3 fights. He beats Imavov at 205. He beats Abus Magomedov. And then he beats Israel Adesanya. Don't forget he got outstruck by Jared Cannonier. Even though I thought Sean maybe should have won that fight, but still had a very close fight with Jared Cannonier at the end of 2022 in December. And before that, obviously, he lost Alex Pereira where he got knocked out. But Dricus has got a real shot. I like both these guys a lot. I really like Sean. I really like Dricus. This is a very good fight between 2 very good middleweights. Again, no one thought Strickland would be in this spot. No one thought Dricus was going to be in this spot. Dricus is still very young, too. 29 years of age, already in his first title fight. I know there's been younger champions, but Dricus is going to be around this game for a long time. I do think Sean Strickland's going to be around this game for a long time as well. It's a very good fight. I think you see a kickboxing fight for most of it. And I think Dricus du Plessis is going to win. I'm going Dricus du Plessis to knock out Sean Strickland. And he's going to get it done in the second round, just like what he did against Robert Whittaker. We are taking du Plessis to win the fight. I think he's going to catch Strickland. I think this weird, funky style that du Plessis fights, it's unorthodox, but it gets the job done. I hate picking against Strickland because I really like Strickland. I do. But I think Dricus is going to get it done. I think he is. I think Dricus is going to walk him down. I think du Plessis is going to make it very tough on Strickland. I think he'll mix it up with the wrestling. I think, again, Dricus, the way he was able to use leg kicks against Robert Whittaker, the way he was able to strike and use his jab very effectively. I know Strickland's going to try to walk him down as well. But I think Duplessis is going to have that counter. I think, don't forget, yes, Strickland had a very good fight against Israel Adesanya, in a fight that potentially I think Adesanya thought he was just going to walk through Strickland in. And, you know, wasn't really all that motivated in, because he wanted that fight to be Duplessis. Don't forget, again, that Strickland had a tough time with Jared Cannonier. He had a tough time against Alex Pineda, even though everyone would. But DDP, man, is here to stay. Dricus Duplessis is such a tough fighter to beat. Again, he's got the nose fixed. I think Duplessis really finds a very successful night in this one. And I think he's going to beat Sean Strickland and new champion from Hatfield, Pretoria, Canada. Canada. Oh my goodness. Hatfield, Pretoria, South Africa. Dricus Duplessis. Remember the name. Dricus becomes the world champion. DDP gets it done with a second round stoppage over Sean Strickland. Hands down, Strickland's going to be trouble. Obviously, Strickland's going to be in his face. He's going to throw those 1s and 2s. I just think Dricus has got more power, and I think Dricus is going to set traps, and I think Dricus is the better striker. I think he's better with his kicks. Sean doesn't really throw kicks other than the occasional leg kick. It's mostly just boxing. Dricus Duplessis is going to work the entire body, work the entire head, and Dricus Duplessis is going to become the world champion. So we're going to go with Dricus Duplessis to win by second round knockout. I remember when he came in the UFC, man, I was like, watch out for this guy. He was very good in EFC and KSW. He's a very talented guy. Look at him now. He's one big shot away from becoming the UFC's world champion. I think if he wins, though, they will try to do him in Adesanya, and they might try to do it for 300. That's the main event I think they are waiting on. Duplessis Adesanya. We will see. Does Adesanya deserve the shot for the belt? Hell no, he does not. He does not. It should be Jared Cannonier. They should make Adesanya fight Khamzat Chimaev, if we're being honest. It should be Cannonier Duplessis next. But again, this is the money-making business. The fight business is about making money, and the money fight obviously is Duplessis Adesanya. Adesanya Strickland 2 will sell pay-per-views, but I think the UFC will pivot then, and they will go to Strickland and Chimaev, because I think really on the totem pole, Cannonier is their third priority. I mean, don't forget what Cannonier did to Marvin Vettori. And oh, by the way, Strickland owns a win, or sorry, Cannonier owns a win over Strickland as well. But anyways, Cannonier is a very good, very talented fighter. He's getting up there in age 39. It's now or never now for him. But he's unfortunately third in the totem pole of getting a title fight. It goes Izzy, Chimaev, then Cannonier. I think Cannonier should be first, then Chimaev, then Adesanya. But we'll see. I think if Sean wins, they'll probably do Sean and Khamzat, because Cannonier, unfortunately, is not a money fight. And then they will pivot to probably DDP and Adesanya still. I think regardless, Duplessis is going to fight Adesanya next, because again, they want the money fight. They can put that on pay-per-view no matter what. But anyways, I don't think that's really a factor. So I think Dricus Duplessis is becoming the new world champion. So folks, thank you guys for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy. We'll be back in 2 weeks. No UFC next week, but in 2 weeks' time, we will have a fight night the night before the Super Bowl. It will be Roman Dolidze and Nasruddin Imavov in the main event. Admittedly, it is somewhat of a weak card, but we'll get to it when we get to it. Folks, thank you for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more. And Mamba forever.